So I get a lot of questions about whether or not the PMP certification is worth it because let's be honest, it's going to cost you a lot of money to get certified. The test in and of itself is very expensive. You're going to have to pay for the prep materials as well, and it's going to cost you a lot of time and energy. So before people jump into it, they always want to know, is this going to be worth it in the end? And all I can do is tell you what the data says and also what my personal experience has been. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about whether or not the PMP certification has been worth it for me, what happened in my life experience, what my life looked like before the PMP certification, and what my life has looked like afterwards. So if you're new here, my name's Veronica. This is PM Mastermind, and I give you all the games so that you can run the play to pivot into project management. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, and without any further ado, let's talk about the PMP. So before I became a PMP certified project manager, I was basically living a completely different life. And it all started kind of when I gave birth to my daughter. I was a teen mom. I was only 17 years old, and I was a single mom. So it was very, very challenging. I immediately jumped into the workforce and I was working at call centers. I've done all types of call center work, answering the phones, giving medical benefits, telling people whether or not a provider was a network for them. I even did some call center work that was kind of focused around like beauty products and answering questions for salespeople. I have done all types of different work. I also catered weddings for a little while, and when I say catered, I don't mean me doing the cooking. I mean I was the person serving the food to the wedding guests, passing out drinks. I've worked multiple jobs at the same time. I was literally doing whatever I had to do to provide for myself and for my daughter. And I always had the dream of going back to school and getting my degree, because nobody in my immediate family had ever graduated from college before. And I was really determined to be the first one. So eventually, when I was 26, I did get the opportunity to go back to school full time. And I spent the next 4 years getting my degree in chemistry because my goal was to go to medical school. And unfortunately, I graduated college in 2020, but that was during COVID, and I also didn't get into medical school. So needless to say, I was not in a good place at all. And so career-wise, I was not doing well. I was working in a lab making $17 an hour, and I'll put a little picture here for proof so you guys can see me. As you can see, I don't look very happy. And to be honest, I was really depressed because I felt like I had been in this bad situation for so long, and the whole reason I was going back to school was to give my family an opportunity at a better life, and then not getting into medical school really devastated me. And I was just not in a good mental space. I started to gain a lot of weight. I was eating my feelings. I was extremely unhappy, and I really just felt lost. So, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I was in a really dark place at the time, and I needed something. I was looking for something, the breakthrough that I thought that I had earned by going and getting my college degree, that I couldn't seem to find it. I couldn't bring it into reality, and I was really struggling with that. So basically what happened was I had a series of synchronicities. Somebody mentioned project management at a comedy show that I was at, and I was like, oh, I've never heard of that. What do they do? And then I heard it from somewhere else, and then my aunt brought it up to me randomly, and she said, hey, you're really organized and you're really good with people. You should think about, getting into project management. And that is kind of what sparked my journey into becoming a project manager. And I just want to paint the picture by saying, while I was in college, we were struggling. We were struggling really badly. I was in a relationship, and my significant other was working 3 jobs. I was also working 3 jobs. We were both basically working 7 days a week. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. My daughter had the bedroom. We were set up in the living room. We were on food stamps. So we were struggling really hard to get me through school. And so to not end up getting into medical school after I graduated college was quite a hit, and we were still struggling. We still didn't have any money. We were broke. And so, when my aunt said, hey, now that you're graduated, even though medical school didn't work out, you should look into project management. I was like, great. I heard that they make good money. I've heard a little bit about it. Tell me what to do. And so she told me, go and get a certification. Now, mind you, at this point, I have no idea what the PMP is. I'm looking into all different types of project management certifications that I found online. And the PMP was, of course, the most expensive one. At this point, I don't even really know that it has qualifications. But I really need a job, and I need a job that's going to make a lot of money. And all of my research is telling me that project managers make $120,000 a year on average. So at this point, I'm like, I will do whatever it takes to make this work. So I found a PMP prep course, and I borrowed the money to take it from my sister because I obviously did not have it. It was a couple $1,000s. And I quit my job. I had a job at the time, and I had to quit it because the class was an advanced class. It was 2 weeks long, and it was all day. And I just felt like, I had to quit my job and take this risk of getting this certification so I could try to become a project manager and get a project management job. And a lot of the times people will ask me, well, that's a big risk. Like, how did you decide to do that? And to be honest, it was an act of desperation because I was so unhappy. I could literally break down in tears thinking about how unhappy I was in my life at that time. I just felt defeated, and I felt like I didn't have anything to lose. There's no way I can be unhappier than I am right now. So, you know what? Whatever. Like, nothing else matters. I'm just going to take this risk, and we'll see what happens. And what ended up happening was I completed the class, and I studied for a few weeks, and then I went and I took the PMP exam, and I passed on the very first try, above target in all areas, and I was obviously very happy about that. And I started looking for jobs. Now, I was applying very, I want to say, strategically for the first 4 to 8 weeks. And what I say by strategically, I mean, I was only applying to jobs that I thought that I could qualify for. And that was not doing me any favors. So I started telling myself, you know what, I'm going to apply to the job, whether I think I qualify or not. I was working at call centers before, but my background was still in healthcare. I knew all about benefits. I knew all about providers. I knew about the life cycle of a claim, just from my call center healthcare experience. So I was like, you know what, let me stay in healthcare, and let me just apply. Like, I'm just going to put myself out there. And so I started applying like crazy to all these jobs that were asking me for like all these things that I definitely didn't have. And one of them called me back, and it was a biotech company in Dallas. And they asked me to come in for an interview for a senior research and development project manager. And I ended up getting that job. And that was my very first foray into project management. And that job paid $105,000 a year. So I went from $17 an hour to $105,000 a year, what felt like overnight. And that was my big break. That was my big breakthrough. And my life immediately changed because at this point in time, we weren't even in our own apartment. We were living with my significant other's family at his parents' house. Okay? So we were struggling. Like, I cannot emphasize enough how broke we were. And so with this big break, I was like, we're going to get our own place. We're going to do our thing. And so we did. We moved out. We got our own apartment. And life started to feel normal again. And then I was only at that company for like 7 months before they basically got in trouble by the government. I can't say a lot because I was under an NDA. But there was some trouble that happened, and then that didn't work out. So I immediately started looking for another job, and I literally found another job in 2 weeks. And it was paying even more money. And that's kind of when I realized that project management was like an actual in-demand career. And it was one of those things where you didn't really know unless you knew that you could go and get a certification and that the certification will hold so much weight. Now I want to stop here because a lot of people ask me, well, how do you know it was a certification? They told me because I asked them, like, what made me the ideal candidate? And they said, well, you're certified, you have your PMP certification, that's a big deal. So when an employer and a hiring manager and a recruiter says this to you, you're obviously going to believe them, because that's what made me stand out against all these other candidates, was the fact that I was PMP certified. And, you know, being at this R&D company, the fact that I had a chemistry degree was also very helpful. So I don't want to say it was just the PMP cert, but that was, from their perspective, what differentiated me both times when I got both jobs. So that's when I started teaching PMP certification classes, which I still do to this day. You know, obviously we have a community, we have a course, we help people pivot into project management, whether you've been a teacher or a nurse or, you know, a car salesman, or you worked in retail. We've helped all different types of people with all different types of backgrounds pivot in. And the reason why I do this is because I was able to do it, and I know that it works, and I know how much it changed my life. So my life looks a lot different now than it did before, when I was in my 1-bedroom apartment, or when I was answering phones at the call center, or when I was living, you know, with my partner's parents. Life has changed a lot. As you can probably see, I've got my daughter in one of the top schools in the city. We live in a really nice place, in a really nice area. You know, I've been able to purchase, you know, my dream vehicles, all of those types of things. But I'm really not the type of person who likes to brag about their lifestyle. The thing that project management and my PMP has given me the most of is my freedom and my time. And those are the things that have always been the most important to me. You know, my parents live in Hawaii, and I get to go and see them 2 times, maybe 3 times a year. Ever since I became a project manager, I typically spend my entire summer in Hawaii visiting with them. And I never have to take PTO, you know, or take time off unless I absolutely want to, because I work from home. So I have that freedom. I'm still making good money. You know, my income has grown over the years significantly, especially, you know, at one point I stopped doing full-time work and I got into consulting, where I was a full-time, basically, consultant. I would pick up contracts and make money on an hourly basis, which has also been very lucrative. It's another great option for project managers as well. So when people ask me if the PMP is worth it, the answer for me is 100% yes, because it completely changed my life. And it didn't just change my life, but it changed the life that I was able to provide for my family. And I see people all the time who talk about how unhappy they are being stuck where they are, and they don't really know, you know, what to do. Now, project management isn't for everyone, and the PMP exam is not easy. But if you are naturally organized, you're a natural leader, you're not afraid to talk in front of people, And maybe you've got some subject matter expertise in your specific industry, whether that's healthcare or marketing or finance or construction or technology or retail, whatever it may be, then I certainly implore people to look into project management and getting certified. Getting the certification alone is not going to take you where you need to go. You still have to work hard for it, but that should be a given, right? Like nobody's going to hand you $100,000 just because you're sitting there looking pretty and you have a certification. You still need to make sure your resume looks good, your LinkedIn's updated, you're out there networking, you're continuing to hone your skills, you're continuing to learn. All of those things are important. So I'm not saying all you have to do is get the cert. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that getting this certification has completely changed my life and the life of my family and the life of those that I love. And I got certified in January of 2021. And as of the release date of this video, it's June 2025. It's been 4 years. That's all. Some people take a lifetime to get to where I've gotten in 4 years in my career, just through, being strategic in every single move that I make and being persistent and being consistent and being determined. And more than anything, leaning on my faith. Like, let me not sit here and say that it was all me. Like, I was being guided by God. He guided me through every step, and I just kept following that guidance, and I kept leaning on that faith, and I wouldn't be here without that. So when people ask if this certification is worth it, for me, 100% yes, because I wouldn't be where I am if I wouldn't have taken that big risk and went and got the PMP certification. People are always scared to take a big chance on themselves because they're worried about if it doesn't work out. But what if it does work out? What if it does work out? What if it works out so much that 4 years later you don't even recognize the life that you live? What if it works out that well? And that's the mindset you need to have if you're trying to pivot your career. You can't show up every day thinking, well, what if this doesn't work out? Because eventually you'll just stop showing up. Every single day, you need to wake up telling yourself, this is going to work because I'm going to make it work, and I'm not going to stop going until it does work. That's the attitude that you need to have. And some people need to be backed into a corner and at their lowest low before they can think like that. And I don't suggest that. That's certainly kind of where I was. I was in a really dark, low place. But you don't have to be at rock bottom, to believe in yourself and to invest in yourself. I can spit off data all day. Obviously, PMI recently released some market data. Project management is growing at an accelerated rate. They expect there to be around 30 million, a 30 million person talent gap by 2035, is what they said. Look into it, look into that data, do your research, and, just make an informed decision for yourself. For me, I invested a couple of $1,000s into taking my PMP and getting the course. And obviously I've made that money back and then some. And I'm really happy with how everything has turned out. And there's still so much more to go. Like, this is still the beginning of my career in project management. There's so much growth to be had, and that's really exciting. And that's the exciting thing about being a project manager, is that you've never really reached the top, because you can go program level, you can go portfolio level, you can pivot into product management, or you can go into executive leadership. If you don't believe me, you should ask your C-suite leaders. Ask them what their background was in before they got into executive leadership. A lot of the times it's project management, or it's product management, or it's program management, because the skill set that you learn as a PM is transferable, and it really helps you kind of gain the 30,000 foot view of business and strategy and how to operate as a strategic leader. So I hope that this has been helpful. I just wanted to give you guys some insight into how project management has really changed my life. You know, I'm not here to try to sell you on anything. Of course, we have a community you should join. We have a course, you can take it. You know, we have ebooks, we have resources. But I also have a ton of free game that I give on my YouTube that you guys can check out. I just want to come to you, you know, as a person and let you know that this is not something that, you know, happened overnight. It's something that I believed in and I dedicated time to, and I continue to dedicate time to, and it's just paid off, and it continues to pay off. And I do feel strongly that if you decide to invest in yourself in this way, if you think that this is the right thing for you, that it will pay off for you as well. And I hope that if you are in that same place that I was in 4 years ago, where you feel like you're backed into a corner, or you're at rock bottom in your career, or you're just unhappy, that you will be willing to take the same risk and invest in yourself and believe in yourself, and believe that a positive outcome awaits you if you will just, you know, take that step out on faith. So that's all I have for you guys today. You know, obviously, if this video inspired you, then please like, drop a comment, share it with somebody who you think it could help, and subscribe to my channel. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.